Good morning. I'm pleased to welcome Mr. Alfredo Arguello for this discussion about his entrepreneurial journey. After a 3-decade career at the storied American corporation General Electric, Mr. Arguello quit his job in corporate America in early 2020 and decided to get a franchisee of the burger chain MOOYAH in Middle Tennessee with his son. The first MOOYAH franchisee Mr. Arguello opened was so successful, he decided to buy another one. So he now owns and operates 2 MOOYAH franchises. Mr. Arguello, thank you for taking the time to visit with our students today.
Thank you so much.
So as I mentioned to you, I will start with the first question that we ask everyone. Can you tell us a little more about your business? What exactly is your business?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, an apology. I am at home. There are 2 dogs. If somebody rings the bell or something, they're going to go nuts. If that happens, I'll put it on mute. And then once they relax, I'll go back to it. At the end of the day, America loves a great burger. And not all burgers are the same. There's a large number of burgers that are microwave. There's a large number of chains that when they serve you a burger, they do it with frozen fries full of chemicals. It's not good. It's not good for the health. It's not good for the palate. MOOYAH, honestly, is the nation's freshest hamburger. We bake the bread. We punch our potatoes by hand. We rinse them 4 times to remove the starch. And then we fry them, 0 chemicals. You taste the real potato. The beef is Angus certified beef. So let me explain what that means. And I hope you can see me, if this is a whole world of beef, Angus is this. Angus certified is this. Very few, even steakhouses, offer Angus certified beef. So MOOYAH is about introducing you to a very fresh hamburger experience that honestly I believe you never experience anywhere else.
Okay, wonderful. Now I will ask Mallory, who's one of the students in this class. She has a question about what made you interested in franchising. So Mallory, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yes. The question I have is, what made you interested to go into the franchise business?
So Mary, I retired, and thank you for your question. I retired from General Electric. I was managing probably the most profitable business in GE Healthcare as a president and CEO of a very large division. And I could have gone anywhere when I retired. But my son, who was graduating close to you from Sanford University in Birmingham, he didn't want to go work for a big corporation. And so what I thought was, why don't we use my skills to create an American company with him? Because he doesn't want to go work for a big company. And he and I spent 2 years researching the franchise industry. And that's how we landed with MOOYAH. A great concept, but I did it for only one reason, is to be with my son. And we're doing great. We love it. The franchise business for us has been very rewarding.
So Mr. Arguello, let me push this a little more. I think what Mallory and I were trying to understand is everyone knows how to make a burger. You could have made a burger without the franchise, right? You could have opened sort of your own burger place, not a franchise. Why franchising? What benefits did you see in franchising that you did not see going on your own without the franchise?
There's a few. One of them is that you get the formula from them. You don't have to go and design it. But most important is that you get the infrastructure. So what does that mean? The whole distribution system for getting access to the food is all set up by MOOYAH. You don't have to do any of that. One of the world's most difficult corporations to ever deal with, for example, is Coca-Cola. And they treat small businesses like nothing. So then where MOOYAH comes in is these national contracts, where Coca-Cola does not treat us like an insignificant business, but rather as MOOYAH corporate. And so the distribution system to get access to your food, the suppliers, the distributors, the equipment specifications, and the recipe, it's tremendous value to a franchise owner.
And I'm very glad that you mentioned this example with Coca-Cola, because this is something that we have not traditionally discussed in the class when we talk about franchising. But now we will discuss, because you helped us learn about this other side as well, which is you get more respect as a franchisee from the large corporations like Coca-Cola than you would have if you were an independent business owner, just 1 or 2 stores of your own. So thank you for
Correct. And so, for example, the distribution companies that distribute food to restaurants, they do a really poor job for a small business owner. Their expertise is in supporting very large corporations. And so you get leverage by doing so.
Wonderful. Our student Jack has a very good question about your time in corporate versus as an entrepreneur. So I would like to invite Jack to ask you his question.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. I can see in your background that you kind of advanced a lot in your time at GE, doing a bunch of different positions, and I'm assuming climbing that ladder. I was just wondering, how is that kind of translated over to maybe I'm saying it wrong, but almost being like an entrepreneur in GE and keep advancing through that. How has that helped you in your true entrepreneurial experience at MOOYAH?
Jack, great question. And I like to think that I was a very unique executive at General Electric, because when I was in GE, I only cared about 3 things and only 3 things. I cared about the customer, the product, and the employee. My attention was always on those 3 pillars. So I never worked in corporate because I wanted to be with the customer, with the employee, always making sure that the product had a great delivery. You see, so when I became an entrepreneur, it's true that I was in the medical field, in the most high technology medical field that you could ever dream about. Those 3 principles carry to the food industry. Think about this. If you go to a restaurant, what do you want to have? You want to have a great meal, you want great service, and you want to see people smiling. So those 3 pillars of having worked for a massive corporation apply to my franchise. I honestly believe that in Brentwood, there's only one and only one and only one Better Burger place. There was another chain called BurgerFi. We already closed them. They're done. They're out of here. Because any day, any moment, any second, you could not compare their burger with ours. Our employee with our employee. And then therefore you had that ultimate customer experience. And so what I learned was what I like to call sincerity in leadership. When I was at GE, I never asked an employee to do something that I was not willing to do. In this franchise business, I carry that sincerity all over again. So you know what? If I gotta punch a bag of 50 pounds of potatoes, I will. And if I gotta flip a burger, I will. Because I'm never gonna ask an employee to do that. if I'm not willing to do it. So it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's about who you want to be as a leader, either in a big business world or in a franchise. Leadership.
So, Mr. Arguello, that's very interesting and very informative, right? You are saying your style of leadership is not sort of directive. Hey, go do this. And I order you to do this, but it's more like if I'm willing to do this, then my subordinate should be willing to do it too. Which is very good. At the same time, I can't help but think at GE, you also had the financial backing, the financial pockets of a large company. Now, the financial resources are much more limited. So do you find any differences? I know with Jack's question, you sort of focused on the similarities, but what about the differences in working for a company like GE versus working on your own?
I will answer your question, but first you triggered a thought in my mind before I answer that question. I had, going back to this sincerity and leadership, I always made human resources, when I will speak, they will always go nuts, because I will always say, I do not in any way, shape, or form have an open door policy. When you hear a big leader say, I have an open door policy, to me, that's hypocrisy. That is arrogance. My philosophy was, I bring the door to you. To have an open door policy is arrogance, because what it means is you as the big boss, you're in the office and you're waiting for the employee to come inside. That's hypocrisy. Our job as leaders is to bring the door to the employee. That creates a great inclusive work environment. Now about the financial question. When COVID hit us, many franchise owners learned that as franchise owners, they were not the owners of their business. They learned the hard way. Somebody else owned the business, not them. Who? The bank and the landlord. And this is one of the reasons why many franchise owners went bankrupt when COVID hit us. Because they thought they were the owners, but if they didn't pay the bank for the loans, and if they didn't pay the landlord for the rent, they're out of business. So, as many of you would consider a franchise owner, remember one thing and only one. Cash is king. You want to own your business? You got to live and dream cash. You have to have access to cash, and you have to have the ability to generate cash. If you depend on a loan to survive, you're done. So you have to do a thorough analysis on your financial analysis and your ability to generate cash. I will tell you this. COVID was easy to manage through. At the time, we thought it was the most difficult thing. At the time, we thought it was a nightmare. But you know what was worse? It's what came after COVID. What came after COVID is the worst inflation rate in 40 years. Horrible energy prices. The worst interest rates in 40 years. And then two more things. A massive labor crisis where it's impossible now to find workers. And if you find them, you got to pay them an arm and a leg. So now let's go to franchise owners. If COVID didn't kill them, the high cost of labor, the high cost of interest rates, the high cost of energy, and the high cost of foods destroy them. Just in my area alone, in 18 months, over 50 restaurants have already closed the doors. They can't handle it. So you doing a thorough analysis of, if you consider I don't want to scare you, I'm just being honest. You have to understand not only the financial aspects, but the generation of cash. Cash. And you got to be able to know what your cost of goods sold are. You see, and that's where the franchisee comes in. Because if you're an independent owner, everyone will charge you an arm and a leg for the food. But if you're a franchisee, the franchise negotiates the cost of goods sold. They help you bring it down. You see, so in a restaurant business, if you don't have cost of goods sold in the 28% range, you're done. You're done. You can't do it alone. You can't do it alone. You need help. So I hope I answer your question thoroughly.
Yes, you did. And I was very thankful that you were bringing up many of the things that we have discussed in class. Cost of goods sold. Cash is king for small businesses. They need to keep an eye on the financials as well as on the other things in the business. So I'm glad you brought up all these things that we've discussed in the class. Now, let me ask you this. When you first started telling people around you, your friends, your colleagues at work, your relatives, perhaps even sort of your siblings or other family members, that you were going to quit your job to start your own food business, what were the reactions of people around you?
Yeah, I let me clarify something. I did not quit my job. I retired. I
Okay,
retired from
right,
General Electric.
right.
I was born and raised in Nicaragua. My father was an entrepreneur. My father founded the largest construction company in Central America. He founded the third largest bank in the country, the two largest corporations for both concrete manufacturing and wood processing, and I could go on and on. So I come from a family of entrepreneurs. When a bunch of communist terrorist criminals, supported by both Cuba and the Soviet Union, took over Nicaragua, we left. We had to leave to survive. They were going to kill us. So we made the US our home. My entire family, everyone, parents and siblings, they went to do what they do, entrepreneurs. And I was the only one that went into corporate America. So I was always surrounded by entrepreneurs, people that were making businesses in the United States with their own hard work. And I went to corporate America. You see, so by the way, I learned a lot from them because when I retire, you better believe it, that I reached out to them to get ideas, thoughts, and so forth. But in the end, I knew I always had the entrepreneurial spirit. It's just that I spent my whole career in corporate America.
So you retired first and then decided to start a business. It wasn't like you decided to start a business first and then made the decision to retire.
No, I knew when I was going to retire, and which I knew it was going to be in 2020. So we signed all of the agreements in 2019. Everything was sealed in 2019, 9 months before I retire. And little did I know that COVID was coming our way, because I would have changed the whole dynamics. If I would have known COVID was coming, I would have changed the whole dynamics, but we didn't know.
As you know, no one or most of us had no idea COVID was coming. Here you had all the agreements signed, the business ready to start. What stage were you when COVID hit, and how did it impact your business in the early days?
So I think COVID hit this country pretty hard in March of 2020. We opened the doors in May of 2020. On time. It did not delay us. Not at all. while everybody was carrying pajamas at home. And here's why. Back in 2019, when we selected the construction company, we interviewed 5 different companies, 4 major corporations, and 1 small business owner, a father with 2 kids. What we learned and detected was this. We were going to be an insignificant person for a large corporation. And I was pretty much guaranteed in my mind, I was thinking, every 2 months, they'll change project managers. It will be a disaster. And so we went with a local entrepreneur, a family that had great reputation in this area. And sure enough, we were right. We opened the doors on time. We were not delayed. When we opened the doors, dine-in was prohibited. Prohibited. So it had to be a to-go business. To go. And then it took about 9 months for the dine-in to go from 0 to 25%, 25 to 50, always with a separation. And then over time, it was allowed to have 100%. We had no idea what was going to happen from day to day, day to day. We just had no clue. But one thing I will tell you, if we go back to people, employees, we never fire one person. We never cut one person's hours. They needed us. They needed us. They needed to feed their families. These were very tough times. Employees matter. We kept them. We didn't cut their hours. We believed in ourselves that we were going to make it. The world is about 2 kinds of people, the winners and the losers. 2 kinds of people. You control your destiny or you let somebody else control it. I know where we are. We were not going to let COVID control us. And I know we were going to win. As an entrepreneur, when you do a franchise, this is a test of who you are as a leader. Make no mistake. People will look up to you. People will challenge you about things. It's you as a leader, your values, your ethics, what you put in, how you treat people, how you treat customers. It's your heart, what you put into it. Don't let anyone take that away from you. This is about you winning.
And during this time, when the initial phase was excitement, right? From 2019, when you were signing these agreements to about February or early March, I'm assuming you and your family, and especially your son, was very excited about the next phase. And from March to May, March to probably even October and November was a tough time when dine-in was all canceled. What kind of support did MOOYAH give to you and its franchisee owners? Or did they step back and say, hey, look, it's on you, you figure it out, you do whatever you want, we don't know anything?
Their support was superb. Their job was to keep distribution going, get the food to you, to help you open the doors. Honestly, outside of that, it's all you. It's all you. Remember, the franchise corporation is here to support you with the infrastructure. Everything else is just you.
So in the class, we talk about how good franchisees, good franchisors also give training, also help you. Now you were, of course, a 30-year veteran of corporate America, but did you get any sort of training from MOOYAH? Did your son get any sort of training from MOOYAH?
Yeah, because yes, we do, and they provide training materials, documents for not only the leadership but also for the employees. Because this was COVID, all the training was on just like this, 2 weeks of Zoom before we opened the doors. We were the very first unit at MOOYAH that conducted the training via Zoom. Now, prior to the so that was the leadership, right? It was my son with a GM that we hired, and they spent 2 weeks just like this on 8 hours a day, 2 full weeks training. Now, when it's time to open the restaurant, they send a team of trainers for 2 weeks to the location before opening to get everything in order, everything in place, making sure. Oh, by the way, another big benefit of the franchise is the IT infrastructure. That is so critical. Could you imagine being in a restaurant and your systems are hard down and you got a line of 20 customers and you can't place an order? And then they place the order and then you don't have PCI compliance and somebody hacks you and steals all the credit card information. Now you're in trouble. So MOOYAH gives you foolproof IT infrastructure with all the compliance, all the anti-hacking. We've never had any issues. So while major hospital chains in the country are getting hacked left and right, we are protected, right? So that's another one. The IT infrastructure support from a franchise, it's paramount. You can't do it alone.
Okay. One of our students, Ryan Marcella, has a question about your decision to enter the food industry in particular. So Ryan, do you want to ask that question?
Yeah, my question was why you just like decided to initially go into the food industry, like what your motives were.
Oh, my son, that's what he wanted.
Okay.
My son drove that. When he was at Sanford, MOOYAH opened a restaurant across the street, and he went for the opening week, and he always went and he loved it, and that's exactly what he wanted to do. So my son drove that, and I went to Dallas in 2019 to check them out, and I love what they had to offer, what they had to say. And if we go back to my family, so imagine that my dad, probably the third largest employer in the nation, an industrialist. He comes here to the United States, and you know what he did? He went into the supermarket industry. My dad, an industrialist, went into the food industry. And so while I was at General Electric, I was exposed to the supermarket industry for a long time. And by the way, this is where people get it wrong. Let me share something with you about the supermarkets. Very, very intelligent people will tell you that there are no margins in the supermarket industry and that they are 2 to 3%. They are very intelligent because they're right, but they're wrong. Because when you're in New York, you have a monopoly when you have a supermarket. You're in New York City. People don't have a choice. They got to go to your supermarket. So the margins are like 15% net. Unbelievable. They print money left and right. Right. So it was a combination of my son and the exposure that I had with my family when they came to this country to become entrepreneurs.
Wonderful. So another question we got from a student is, and I think this is the right time to ask that question. So what's been the biggest struggle so far? You've made it seem like everything was easy so far. I mean, there were hiccups, but you control your destiny, but there must have been points in time when you felt like the struggle was hard. What was the biggest struggle so far?
First of all, it has not been easy. It has been a nightmare, total nightmare, because there's never been a worse time to open a restaurant. Remember the series, COVID, inflation, interest rates, labor crises, labor shortages of food. It has been nonstop. So our business collapsed in the fourth quarter of 22. It collapsed. And all of last year, it was improving a little bit at a time, just not fast enough. It has been a nightmare of major proportions. Let's go to today. We're now growing at 25% a year. And you have to ask why. First are those three pillars: the product, the customer, the employee. But then you got to go to leadership. As a leader, if you own your own business, it is not your job to give up. It is your job to persevere, to go forward. You got to go forward. Allow me to share with you two books that made a huge difference in my life. One of them, Control Your Own Destiny or Someone Else Will, Jack Welch. And the second one, Only the Paranoid Survive, Andy Grove, Intel. So let's think through that. I just said it has been a complete and total nightmare. If you're paranoid about your future, what do? You keep looking for answers. You don't give up. You keep looking for answers, knowing that you got the right strategy. So in this business, how do you win? One customer at a time. One customer bring you 3. 3 bring you 9. 9 bring you 27. It is an equation that over time grows in a spiral way, which is now what we're experiencing. You see, so now by being paranoid, what are you paranoid about? The customer. You got to deliver that ultimate experience. And then you go to what Jack Welch, control your destiny. Control your destiny. Don't play victim. Figure it out. And so I love that you asked me that question, Professor. It has not been easy, but it tests you as a leader. If you're going to go into the franchise business, you better be a leader. Become a student of leadership skills. May I build on that for just an extra moment? Let me ask all of you a question. I'm going to give you 10 seconds, 15 seconds to answer this question. What is the role of the leader? Think. What is the role of the leader? The role of the leader is to inspire confidence. That's it. So if you go into the franchise business, it is your job to inspire confidence. To whom? To the employees? To the customer? And if you do, people will love their job. They will smile. Your customers will come back. As a leader, you have to portray that confidence. Franchise or not, it is about being a leader. Become a student of leadership models.
Wonderful. And I will say this question came to me from a student, Mallory Barrett. I didn't want to call her again in case, she felt embarrassed about asking her question again. So, but to give her credit, it was she who came up with this question. Let me ask you this. We've already talked about your previous sort of your early life, your parents and how you came to the US and all that. But we did not yet talk about college. Did you get college education? Where did you go to college? Was entrepreneurship something that was discussed in college in your time? Could you share a little bit about that with the students?
So I'm an engineer. I went to a school, an engineering school, that's all it is, engineering school, called Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, RPI, in Troy, New York. It is one of the nation's premier engineering school. and in industrial engineering. And when I graduated, as I was born in Nicaragua, I did not have a permit to work here. And so I went to get my master's at RPI. And so my master's is in engineering. In those days, I was what people will call the perfect nerd. I love three things: mathematics, chemistry, and physics. I've always been my entire life a numbers person. I love numbers. Every day, I need numbers. I need numbers. I'm always into spreadsheets, numbers, metrics, benchmarking, numbers, numbers, numbers. I became an expert in statistical analysis. So I never studied entrepreneurship. In fact, when I was getting my degrees, the worst thing that can happen to an engineer is that you got to take electives. Oh man, you got to take what? I don't know, psychology, philosophy, literature. Oh no. I went to the dean and I said, there is no way in this planet that I'm going to do that. I am mathematical. I'm a scientist. I don't want any of that. And I was waived to take all the electives so that I could focus on the stuff I love. Nobody knew that, but I was waived from taking. So anyway, so no, I did not take entrepreneurship because all I needed was numbers, numbers, numbers. And I'm always thinking, about. Let me share with you why this is important. If you're thinking franchise, let me just give you one lesson of physics that will help you as an entrepreneur. The question is, what is friction? For every force in one direction, you have the absolute opposite same force, same size in the opposite direction. That's what friction is. So now you're an entrepreneur and you make a decision. This is your decision. You decide you're going to do this. If you want to be a good entrepreneur, the question you got to ask yourself, if you apply physics to that mentality, is when you make that decision, what is going contrary to that decision of same size, same force, just opposite direction? So this allows balance in decision making. If you make a decision and you don't understand this, your decision is not balanced. It's not balanced. So so now, how do you get that balance? You ask for people's input. You go talk to 2, 3, 4 people and you have a dialogue. But when you do, you're not going in there to say, hey, do you agree with this? You go in there to try to understand their perspective so that you understand this. And maybe if you listen to them, if you pay attention to what they have to say, maybe your decision won't be that. Maybe your decision will be this. You see, so there's a lot to be learned when you are scientific. And you can bring those lessons to franchising. And I just give you one there, physics. But no, I never studied entrepreneurship.
So you talked about how you were a numbers person. You were focused on the numbers. When I teach entrepreneurship to young students, I find that many of them, the chapter sort of they resist the most is the chapter that focuses on numbers, accounting. Is that something you saw with your son also? Or does he share your passion for numbers?
Yeah, he is. He's very, very technical. He's more IT oriented. He's smart, sharp. Gosh, I wish I was as smart as he is. So let me share this with you about numbers. Numbers per se is nothing if you don't turn it into insights. information, lessons learned. A number is just a number. It doesn't mean anything unless you use them to learn something. So I'll give you an example. COVID came, we talked about, so I'm going to apply now, I'm going to share with you how numbers, insight helps you as an entrepreneur. So we talked about COVID, dining was closed, and then they started opening at 25, 50, 100%. Last year, in our struggles, when inflation was at its high and all that, and our business was collapsing, our online, our to-go business was 60%, 60. So COVID was over. COVID was over, but the to-go business was still 60%, 60. So then what does that mean? How do you translate 60%, a number, data, into insights? And this is how you do it. You realize that COVID changed the world. There are people that will always order online. There are people that like the convenience of DoorDash, Uber Eats. COVID changed that, but it's not going to go away. And so then we said to ourselves, oh my goodness, look at that thing. How do we get more? Instead of fighting it, just saying what the number is, then you say, how do we get more? 60% is good. How do we increase it 20, 30%? Right? So yes, you want the dining. You want the dining to come in. But that 60%, you got to grow. You got to grow. You got to grow. So let's talk through that. 60%, okay. The 60% is three things. DoorDash, Uber Eats, and customers that have downloaded the MOOYAH app on their smartphone. There are three things that are driving the 60%. So let me go to the MOOYAH app on the smartphone. I'm going to give you another number. 2 months from now, we're forecasting that 25% of the population in Brentwood will have downloaded the MOOYAH app on their smartphone. I call that is our digital market share. 25% of the people living in my community will have the MOOYAH app in their smartphone. Think about that. I go around, if I go to a restaurant, 1/4 of that restaurant is all using MOOYAH app. If I go to the mall, 1/4 of all those people. And so now, if we're going to be at 25%, do you think we're going to stop there? Absolutely not. We got to go to 30, we got to go to 35, we got to go to 50. So the number is there, but your job is to understand it. And then it's how do you drive it? How do you drive it? So now, not only do you have a strategy then for DoorDash, for Uber, but then you have a strategy for the MOOYAH app, which, by the way, if you are your own business, you don't have an app. The MOOYAH app is done by MOOYAH Corporate, which we leverage to drive digital market share. I ask a question. How many restaurants do you think in Brentwood have 25% of the population on their smartphone? No one. It's just going to be us. You see, so the numbers are there to help you develop insights into your business so that you can make better decisions.
Wonderful. Mr. Arguello, the next two questions are going to be difficult. They are both student questions, and I will ask Olivia to ask the first question about how is it working with your son in the business. So Olivia, you want to go ahead?
Yes. So my question is, what is the most challenging part of running a business with your son?
He brings incredible expertise, knowledge, things that I'll never know in my whole life. The number one challenge is that he doesn't have the same work ethics that I have. And so there is a generational gap between my generation and yours. You see, so first of all, there's not a challenge, there is no conflict. None. It's just that sometimes that disappointment that I wish he would go that extra mile. Just go one more mile. You see, so there is no friction, none whatsoever. And we talk every day and we strategize every day. But it's just that extra mile. If you're gonna go into the franchise business, don't do it if you're not willing to go the extra mile, because it's a lot of work. So I hope I answer your question.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Mr. Arguello, before I call the second student to ask, which I also think is a difficult question, let me ask you this about your son. Do you think it's a generational gap of, the work ethic? Or do you think it's the fact that, he's young and, we were young ones too. So is it sort of where you are in the stage of life, or is it a generational issue? Or is it the fact that sort of, because of your success in corporate America, he grew up with the kind of comforts that may not have been there for you as sort of an immigrant's son? Could you care to sort of elaborate on that a little bit?
I think it is a generational gap amongst American kids.
Okay.
I honestly believe that. By the age of 20, I had survived an earthquake that destroyed a city of 500,000 people. I saw people dying, my hands, blood everywhere. I had survived a civil war where I saw the airplanes and the tanks killing people left and right. I had to flee the nation to survive with my parents. I had made a deal with my father when we fled the country that if one of us will get killed, you dump the body, you keep going. Imagine that, making a deal with your dad that you dump the body and you keep going so that one of us could survive. No American child has ever lived through what I have. You see, so this country has it too easy. The world is struggling. The world is starving. There are conflicts everywhere. American kids are sheltered from how brutal the world can be. You see, so it's beyond just me with my experience. When I grew up, you never challenged, you respected. It's a big difference. You respected. But by the way, if I could throw something at the class, I do believe that corporate America has the definition of diversity wrong. Remember I told you at the beginning, I was a different kind of executive general electric. Corporate America does not in any way, shape, or form understand diversity. So allow me to give you my definition of diversity. And I believe this will speak to the generational gap. Diversity is understanding that all people are different. All people are unique. And our job is to appreciate and understand the uniqueness of every person. So, for example, Olivia, Jack, you are diverse because you are a unique person. a unique person that brings qualities into this life. So diversity is about getting to know you, to appreciate you for what you bring to life. And by doing that, then what do you get? Respect. Respect. You know, debate is a very healthy thing, very healthy, if you respect the other side. So I have here a coin. To understand diversity, what I tell people is think about the coin. The coin has two sides. Diversity is about me taking time to understand your side, to appreciate your side. And then you take time to understand and appreciate my side. And if we can understand and appreciate each other that way, guess what the truth is? The middle. That's why the coin exists. The coin exists so that we can bridge this generational gap. I can understand you. You can understand me. I can appreciate you. You can appreciate me. And we'll find the truth in the middle. If you go into the franchise business, this is about you developing a wonderful team, a powerful team with respect, with honor, where your job is to lead with confidence while being very sharp about the numbers, get insights into the numbers, and have the financial strength to survive any crisis that comes your way.
Very well said. So the second question that I sort of referring was from Cameron. Cameron, do you want to ask your question?
Yes, I can. My question is, did you have any doubts before opening the franchise or getting into that business?
So let me sort of contextualize this question a little bit, Mr. Arguello, because I really like the question Cameron is asking here. And when I hear you speak, what I see is lots of confidence. What I see is a person who is sure of what he's doing, a person who has this clarity of thought, conviction, and decision. But what about doubts? Like, is there you went through COVID, you went through inflation. Even the Wall Street Journal, when they talked about you, was in the context of why people are feeling so bad in this economy. So was there no moment of doubt ever?
Honestly, no. But I will answer a little bit different. And every franchise owner needs to ask this question. Is there an exit strategy? So it's not a doubt, but it is, when did you ride this ship far enough to where you say it's time to exit? You see, so honestly, I love what we're doing. I wish you could see our community, how they come to MOOYAH, and I just see that. So honestly, bottom of my heart, no doubt. But I turn that into, when is enough enough? And if so, then how will you know that? And when do you exit? When do you exit? You see, but if I could, I want to share with you an example. This has happened 3 times now. One day, an 80-year-old lady came, and I was at the register. And as she started to enter the order, she started to cry. She collapsed. I grabbed her, and I held her. Ma'am, what's going on? My husband is dying. The doctors told me he'll die today. And I asked them, What can I do? What is the one thing you want before you die? And he said, bring me one of those damn burgers from MOOYAH. I swear to you, that has happened 3 times now. Very sad story, isn't it? But what I want you to get from it is the heart, how we have touched those people. That gives me strength. The strength comes when you connect with the community. So it becomes magical. So if you're going to do into the franchise, here's an example. Not because they're bad, but I'll give it as an example. Why would anybody ever consider Subway? Can you touch a community with Subway? So if you're going to go into franchise, do some magic. Think about, will you be able to touch a customer's heart? And if you can do that, there's no telling what you're able to do. You see, so I don't have any doubts. But I turn your question into, when is enough enough? When do we say, okay, exit?
And that brings me to my next question, which is, what's the future plan for the business? You said you started it for and with your son. Your son is still young. You obviously have a lot of passion for the business. So what's the future plan for the next 5-10 years? Where do you see this business going?
Yeah, quite honestly, at this stage of the game, America has a major labor crisis. Major. That needs to settle. Could you imagine if I open number 3 and I don't have any workers? It would be devastating. So at this moment, I kind of have that on hold. And what I'm focused on is, how do we keep growing at 20% a year? How do we strengthen the bank account? And then that will give us the strength to make a decision on what is number 3? What does it look like? What is number 4? But right now, I got that on hold because there is way too much uncertainty. Way too much.
You mean economically and in terms of labor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we can navigate the economics. The issue is it's the labor force. So I will tell you what I'm going to do about it. I'm already in the process of having serious discussion to bring group health insurance to the employees, because we're now securing a core set of people that are really good at what they do. And so now what we're going to do is give them health insurance. I hired today a 15, not 15, 16, a 16-year-old kid that makes more than a McDonald's supervisor. So my pay is always better than 99% of restaurant franchise owners. But now I gotta elevate it to solve that labor crisis. And I'll do it with health insurance.
Wonderful. Now, let me ask students if anyone else has any questions at this stage before we move to sort of the last phase of this discussion. So when we were talking in the pre-discussion before we started this conversation, you mentioned you also have a daughter. Your business is with your son. How do you maintain work-life balance as an entrepreneur and as a parent? Can you talk a little bit about that?
It's always a struggle. If you ask my wife, she will say I don't have it. But I cannot be at home doing nothing, watching TV. That's just not me. So what I try to do is, you see, when I was at General Electric, I was in an airplane every single week. Every single week. I just always had to make sure that I was here in the weekends for her, and that I was not constantly spending out 5 days, right? So maybe I will travel 2 or 3 days. So now what I like about this is that I'm having dinner with her every single day. Every day we have dinner together. I find comfort in that. I find comfort in that, right? So I'm self-aware that my family needs me. I give them as much time as I can, but I also know that if I'm in the couch, oh man, I just can't do it, right? So it's a struggle. It's hard to reach that balance. You just got to keep trying.
Okay. So now let's move on to the last question for the day. I know you told me you will give us only until noon because you have the rush hour traffic at the restaurant as well. What is one advice you would like to share with students about to embark on their career post-college?
I have two. One, I want you to think for a moment, what is the number one thing that will make you successful in life? One thing, if you had to pick one thing that will make you successful in your business, in life, and I ask you, is it your marketing skills? Is it your financial skills? Is it how hard you work? Just pick one. And I'll tell you what it is. It's honesty. It's sincerity. It's integrity. There's only one and only one and only one thing in life that will make you successful. It's your integrity. It's your honesty, your humility. If you want to learn anything from this call, it's integrity. Whether you go in the franchise business, you go work for somebody else, it doesn't matter. Integrity is the only thing you've got. It's the only thing you've got. And then obviously, number two will be what we discussed earlier, which is have the financial strength to go in the franchise business. You will need it.
Wonderful. And with that, Mr. Arguello, let me thank you for giving us your time and sharing your experiences with our students. I enjoyed it very much. I'm sure they did too. Is it okay if the students reach out to you on LinkedIn or by email if they have questions?
Absolutely. I would love to.
Perfect. Thank you. And for the class, this is the end of the session today. Thank you very much for your questions and for staying engaged.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.